This is the European edition of Breaking Banks, the world's #1 fintech podcast and radio show. We bring you the European unicorns, startups, founders, regulators, and leaders innovating the rapidly evolving fintech scene today. A truly localized podcast with both English and local language content, with some of the world's most well-known hosts and influencers in the fintech sector globally. Join us every week as we explore what makes the European Union a phenomenal proving ground for many of the fastest growing fintech plays in the world today. Okay, let's roll.
Morning, guys. This is Matteo Rizzi. This is Breaking Payments, belongs to the Breaking Banks Europe family. I'm the executive producer of the show. Today, we are with one of the great Breaking Payments partners, Payoneer, and we are going to talk about a topic that I confess it was pretty new to me before I got into this conversation, but you will see it becomes really interesting. I'm here with Tosin and Louis. Welcome to Breaking Banks Europe.
Thanks very much, Matteo. Nice to have us here for sure.
Luis, please introduce yourself, TapNation, gives a little bit of background of the company and your role, and then, of course, Tosin will do the same. Luis, welcome.
Thank you. So thank you to host me. So I'm the CFO of TapNation that I joined in November 2021. For the topic, I previously did 6 years in advisory in transaction services. So in a M&A process, I was focused on due diligence. So I joined to TapNation in November 2021. The company was created in April 2019. It's a company which is in a mobile game industry. So an industry which is very fast in terms of transaction. And we will reach this year more than $50 million of revenue. So we went through a big growth in only 3 years.
And you guys are in the gaming space, right?
Yeah, we are a publisher in the mobile game industry. So we mostly did do a partnership with studio to create a new game in hyper casual. But we also try to diversify with sometimes some to buy game, which is more opportunistic. Strategy.
Great. Let's park that there because I want to know more about the business model. But Tosin, and by the way, I forgot to say one of the most important thing about this show. Today is a round number, and I think that Payoneer deserves to the mention. Is episode 150. Oh my God, it seems, it's an achievement already. For someone like me who, the only thing that I can do daily is brush my teeth. The fact of having 150 episodes of the same show is great. Tosin, sorry for this brief interruption, but, welcome again. Please introduce yourself.
Thanks very much, Matteo, and super congratulations on hitting 150. I'm trying to think of something that I've done 150 times, and I'm really struggling. Brushing my teeth for sure. But
every week.
So, my name is Tosin, and I actually lead business development within the SMB sector for Payoneer in Europe. And I think most of us, who've been following this podcast know who Payoneer is. And I've been here for 4 years now. So it was 4 years as of last Saturday, which is medium tenure for Payoneer. We have lots of people who've been here for a long time. Testament to the great company it is. And prior to that, I worked for a company called iWalker. It was in the lending space. So, and then prior to that, I spent a lot of time jumping into sandpits as an Olympic athlete. So quite a diverse background, but great to be here and looking forward to this conversation.
Tosin, I found fascinating, from Olympic athlete to full fintech. I mean, I think it's a bright leap. And, I'm pretty sure that one day you will write a book about how much in common these two spaces have.
Matteo, I saw what you did there. You said it's a big leap. I saw what you did there. Very, very clever. I saw that.
Yeah. Okay, guys, let's start, from the basics. as you know, I'm not an expert in M&A, but I am an investor, a venture capitalist for the past 10 years. And I know that the last mile for every startup or SMEs is either an IPO or an exit by being bought. So, Tosin, why are we even talking about this? And what's the relationship with Payoneer?
Good question. Good question. So if you think about what Payoneer is about, right? We are predominantly about SMBs. Yes, we have the enterprise side as well, and they both go hand in hand. So when you think about SMBs have got to start somewhere. They start generally quite small. Sometimes, someone like yourself might invest into an SMB and they can start slightly bigger. And Louis got some big experience there as well. But they generally start quite small. And they just got different stages of growth. So for some, it's growing their customer base. For some, it's real product-driven growth. Others, it's more organic. They've got like a loyal following, and others, talking about what we're here to talk about today, is the acquisition piece, right? So Payoneer really wants to be a company and really prides ourselves in being a company that is there for the SMBs when they're going through that whole growth stage. And like the final mile, like you mentioned before, is when they potentially IPO, or maybe they are, or they get bought. So why we're here talking about it today, it's because Payoneer really starts the SMB, working with the SMB when they're really, really small, and really is, has a consultative relationship with our clients until they get to that final mile. But I guess, Louis is the expert here, right? Because you've been involved in this kind of industry for a long time, right, Louis?
Yeah, I was only for mainly for mid and large cap, but also from a small and medium business. And yes, for sure that we go to M&A according to strategy. Could be customer based or product driven, as you say. From our side, it was it was for both and for volume. And for the small company, we have some pro to be flexible, entrepreneurship with entrepreneurship spirits, but sometimes we lack of structure for compliance, for tax, legal, and for payment transaction. So it's good to have a good partnership like Payoneer to help us to secure M&A process.
But wait a second, guys. So there must have been a before and after, right? Because companies that's been buying companies forever, right? And I'm curious about how fast is or was the digitization journey of the process. And don't forget, the people think that is as simple as write a check and say, hey, please come over. Now, as of now, we are a single company. Even as with a bit of a common sense, you understand that there are a million of other implications, amongst which, regulation, HR, procedure, products, tech, IT, etc., etc. But here we are talking specifically about some digital tools to make it smoother. So, guys, help our auditors and myself as well a little bit to understand the journey, Tosin.
Yeah, happy to take this one as well. So, I mean, recently we're seeing this across the board. When you think about M&A activity, I hope I'm allowed to joke here. When you think about maybe Elon Musk trying to buy Twitter, maybe or Facebook buying Instagram, that's typically what you think of. But it definitely happens on a much smaller level, on the SMB level, and it's definitely not straightforward. In our ecosystem, in Payoneer's ecosystem, we've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of smaller brands being purchased or acquired by larger brands. And one of the biggest trends at the moment is the Amazon aggregator space, where you've got these large Amazon aggregators and their whole business model, and VCs have invested millions, if not billions in some of them, is to purchase high performing Amazon e-commerce brands globally. And that is their whole business model. And this is, from someone who's selling the business perspective, it's not straightforward. It causes them lots of sleepless nights. There's so many different, parts of the business that they have to hand over the rights to. It's not an overnight thing. It's something that generally takes, 3 to 4 months. So they go in there, they get a valuation, and then, the company then is really underwriting and looking at how profitable the business is. And then, depending on the country that they're in, is it a US company? Is it a EU company? There's many different rules and regulations in terms of purchasing the business. Like, it's really not that straightforward. Creates a lot of stress, but overall I think the reason for doing it is because it's good business, right? So these aggregators want to grow, and these entrepreneurs know it's the right time to exit. So to answer your question, Matteo, it's not straightforward. It takes weeks and months for it to happen when you're looking at buying a business, but at the same time it's a massive growth channel for many companies.
I did a transaction that was 2 years of due diligence, of compliance, legal for the big company, which was quoted in the market. So 2 years, that's big. Even if when we are a small and medium company, it's not straightforward at all. Also, we took 3 months to discuss with the targets, to make sure that legal compliance was good, that we understand each other on the payment, and we have reached a problem at the end because it was hard to pay them, and we finally found the Payoneer to smooth the process, because we need to smooth the process to make most people feel safe. So it's definitely not a straightforward process.
Luis, explain us a little bit better. You briefly mentioned what TapNation does. Okay, so the gaming industry is a space that is all in fintech is almost like the best kept secret. So very few people understand the implication of or the overlaps between the gaming world and the payments world, and now there is the pay-per-play world. So explain us a little bit, the dynamics of TapNation, and how specifically, Payoneer helped you in conducting this transaction.
Yeah,
I hope are you a gamer too, Luis? By the way, I'm just curious.
I'm a gamer, but not a big gamer. But sometimes it's good to have somebody which is not a gamer in this industry, because you can only be focused on passion. So it's good to have both and be more focused on business. For the gaming industry, I think it's a specific industry because it's very international. And so we have a lot of opportunity abroad. So we need to have a partner which allows them to do cross-border. And as it's international, we discuss with people with different culture, with different barrier, like it was with the Vietnamese. So we need to understand his culture to make the deal in terms of communication.
At cross-border, we sorry to interrupt you, because I'm listening to you. I had the pleasure to meet you in the show. So it's to pay whom and from where?
We pay from France to a country in Asia. So
because
we buy the assets. We buy an asset to a studio which was located in Asia, and so we have several options to buy it. But it was very difficult because one of them was to find a local bank in Vietnam, but it was almost impossible because we need to do a partnership with bank in France and in Vietnam.
And the asset, Luis, in this case was what, like a graphic studio or like an IP for the game? What was it? The graphic design? What was it?
The asset, it's the source code of the game, all the marketing, in-games, all the characters of the game that are transferred. This could be transferred easily because you can transfer by
you send the file, right? Exactly. Whatever.
It's just a file. If you look at the transaction, if you compare with other transactions, it's pretty easy because you just transfer a file, and after you can make the payments. You just need to make sure payment will be secure, but the transfer in himself, it's straightforward. It's only 1 to 3 days because you need to have the approval from the platform, from the Play Store like Google and iOS, because we work on mobile. But it's pretty straightforward, for sure.
So how secure then are these transfers? Say, for instance, I wanted to do the same thing. I had a mobile gaming company in the UK, and I wanted to buy something from Vietnam because I know Vietnam's massive in the gaming industry. How secure is that transfer of that file, Louis? Like, how were you scared during the 2 or 3 days when you're waiting for that transfer to come through? How does it work?
Yeah, we work with iOS and Google Android, and so the transfer can take from 2 days to 5 days to be effective. So in this transaction, we have an issue because if we pay before, the seller can cancel the transfer, and we lose the money. So in this situation, like, as we have 2 or 5 days of pending period, let's say, we need to be sure that money will get to the seller, but also the asset will go to our account.
Makes sense.
So does it mean that, and I know that this is like a part of like the side offering, for this type of deals, but you need some sort of escrow services, right? And even if you don't call it this way, but I think that Payoneer is almost playing the guarantor, of this transaction, right? You can both comment.
Yeah, it's good to have a third party to make people feel safe about the payment and transfer. And Payoneer play this role during the transaction, but also help on compliance, on knowledge of customer, because Payoneer was the supplier for TapNation for its day-to-day, and also for our targets. So we both know Payoneer, and as it's well known and quoted, it's a safe third party.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Louis, I think you've kind of, maybe you've taken my job now because you explained it very, very well. But literally, if you think about a company like Payoneer, where we do a deep KYC on all of our customers, especially our big customers like TapNation and the company that was in Vietnam, we know everything that we need to know about these companies from a business perspective, right? We know who the ultimate UBOs are, etc. We know the line of business. We know exactly what they do. So, when Louis came to us and TapNation came to us and said, hey, we need to make this transfer, we need to buy an asset worth, a lot of money in Asia, in Vietnam, we felt confident that we could guarantee that their target over there was a genuine company that was involved in gaming, that they did have the asset. We felt confident in helping Louis and TapNation make this transfer because we knew them, and obviously we got to know TapNation on the other side. So even though we don't offer what you would call an escrow service, we don't offer that formally, we're not an escrow company, but at the same time, TapNation were able to purchase this asset and knew that they could send the funds and we could actually hold the funds essentially and have them there ready for when the asset was actually delivered to TapNation, and we could actually make it coordinate, a bit like ballet. We could coordinate it and make it safe for both the target company as well as TapNation, and that's a really, really powerful thing. When you've got a company that really does a due diligence on businesses and actually understands both businesses. I guess it almost, in a way, Matteo, sounds like every company should do their business through Payoneer, and then all of a sudden everything's protected. I'm not saying that. I'd love that. It's never going to happen. But in this case, in these situations here, in this acquisition of an important asset, using that Payoneer platform with both our customers really made a lot of sense.
Tosin, now I'm curious about one thing. So suppose that, Louis now has to buy an asset in Malawi, or, in a let's say in a little bit more remote, like countries where maybe financial infrastructure, or even you don't yet have like a banking partner, right? Now, can you build, this is like I swear to my auditors, this is not prepared, it's not a commercial question. I'm not making actually, trying, maybe even if I should, I'm not trying to make Payoneer look good. I'm actually generally curious about it. And you will tell why. This is all about creators economies and new frontiers. So can you do this in any country? And if this is a country where you haven't worked with yet, I'm curious about both sides, of the story. Tosin.
Thank you for that. So this is the point where, normally if you're on TV live, you've got an earpiece and your director's telling you what the answer is. And I don't see. I don't
yeah, exactly. This is our live, guys.
So Louis, I'm going to get you later for this one. But genuinely, we operate, not Louis, sorry, Matteo, I'm going to get you later. But genuinely, we operate in at least 200 countries globally. We generally have 2 banking partners in each country that we operate in. So to answer your question, if it's in one of the 3 major world currencies, if the transaction is going to be, say for instance, TapNation again is trying to buy an asset in Malawi. If it's in USD, euros, or GBP, we can actually, facilitate the deal. And again, vigorous KYC of the target of TapNation in Malawi. We already know who TapNation are now, a business that's growing from strength to strength. So we can do it. And, preferably in USD, that would be our currency of choice. And it's essentially a wire transfer. And again, we go for the normal due diligence and we make it happen. So, Louise, food for thought. If you've got a company, you've got a target in Malawi, do let us know if we can help you out.
Not yet, but we can.
So, guys, I think that what we should do is let's make a short break right now, because what I want to talk about when we come back is the opportunities that this is like, to me, is a B2B creators economy. People think of creators economy like the guys from Fever, this guy that makes you a little logo for $15, and which is a very difficult transaction to make if, the guys in India and the guy who is commissioning the work is somewhere else. There are like a currency problem, and et cetera, et cetera. This is almost like a same transaction, but on steroids. That's why I almost want to call it a B2B creators economy. We'll start from this and the opportunity that this is generating. Stay with us. We are taking a break.
Let's talk about the future of payments. Your Breaking Payments exclusive series is here, and we are ready to showcase how fintech has deconstructed the payments industry and is rebuilding it seamlessly as an embedded experience for the client. Stay tuned for new episodes every month on Breaking Banks Europe.
Hey guys, welcome back. Episode 150. This time is going to be the first sentence I'm going to pronounce. We are here with Tosin and Luis talking about, I want to say, digitization and process improvement for M&As. And we talked about, the specific operation that TapNation performed with Payoneer. But it is almost like this is an incipit for something so much bigger and so much different, in the world of payments, which is what we call the creators economy. The only difference, as we were saying at the end of the first part of the show, is that these are no small transactions, right? And the fact that now, Louis, anyone can produce content, and a company like yours can buy it without any frontiers. How global are you guys? One. And second, how were you performing these operations before? You're the CFO. You must have lost your hair, before someone like Payoneer, went into the game, no?
Yeah, I almost lost my hair. That's right. And we performed this in other country, but it was for a less significant amount of cash, for sure. So we need to have a more secure process, and so a more structure, because also the targets didn't want to use a non-safe solution, and you want to structure everything like us. So it was definitely good to use Payoneer for this. I mean, we could not do the transaction sincerely without this, because it makes safe both parties.
Like, just thinking about that. So imagine, right? You're a business, Louis, and you're you guys are a successful business from what I can see in TapNation. They're already a successful business. And when you're doing maybe one of the biggest acquisitions of the business's career, or history, so to speak, it's interesting that you actually found a new provider to do this transaction. Or in a way, I would have thought you would have used an existing provider because that's more safe, right? How did you kind of come to that? Yeah, that's almost quite scary for me, like the opposite of what I would expect, right?
But also, I think that's the target. We need to know where the targets, and also we have like a very significant cultural barrier when we communicate with them. So we didn't feel very safe to do the transaction in a normal way with banking, and so we wanted to have something which is close to escrow. So I think communication in this kind of transaction is very key. And as the communication was not good, we decided to do something more secure, and it was definitely to use Payoneer as a third party.
Okay.
How did you guys find each other? And now I'm super curious. I mean, because you can't really like go and do a knock, dear Vietnam, is there any transaction we can perform from Paris, that we can help you with? How did you guys find each other, Louis?
I mean, we look at all the digital payments, and I mean, for sure, we found Payoneer, and we try to see if they can fit our needs. And at the end of the day, they success to find a customized proposal for us because they understood our situation. And we make the deal.
And just to add to that, I'm in a way kind of surprised that you found us for this, because typically when I look at our website, the things at Payoneer is quite a humble company, I guess, and testament to our CEOs that we have. And we don't really advertise the fact that we're involved in M&A activity. When people think about Payoneer, they think about like that digital economy, they think about freelancers, maybe they think about Amazon sellers. And in many cases, that's probably about it. Maybe you might think about us and the eBay deal and us taking over PayPal of eBay, but you kind of see that on one huge side over there, and then freelancers and Amazon sellers. So actually finding out that we could do this is testament to you, Louis, because I don't know how you found out that we can do this, but just so everyone knows, we do actually get involved in M&A activity.
Yeah, we knock on the door to see if it's possible or not. At the end, it was good.
So I have a follow-up question on this, like on the process, right? Because Tosin, you have built rails in like over 200 countries, okay, to and from, great. But one thing is building the payment rails, and the other thing is, or another pair of shoes, is actually performing the due diligence, on the specific company, and some of it, hopefully can be done through APIs to, for example, local databases, that can give you, in some cases, open banking might be of help. Okay. In some other cases, especially for exotic countries, it might not be that easy. So how much of the like background work, is possible to digitize, and how much of it is like pure hardcore research? Because at the end of the day, you are the safeguarder, of the transaction.
Yeah, that is a massive point. And yeah, I do that because my team daily works with the compliance team, the KYC team, like the customer care team, to basically get customers on board. So it is a massive operation here at Payoneer. I can't quote direct the numbers, but I'm pretty sure we have 500 plus people really working within these teams, compliance and KYC teams, to really get, I think we serve about 5 million customers. So each one of those customers, as part of our banking license, we have to review people's accounts, make sure we're confident who they say they are. So review lines of business, review websites, review, their company statements. Like, it's a massive operation. Matteo. It really, really is. So it's something that a lot of it is automated. If you think about in the UK, for instance, we have a website called Company's House, and you have an API, you can grab that data from Company's House. So if TapNation was in the UK, for instance, very quickly, we can find out who they are, what they do, who the CFO is, this guy called Louis that's on the call with us right now. So we know. In France, I don't know the name, Louis, I'm not going to say the French, like I'm going to get it wrong, but France has a similar thing. Germany has a similar thing, right? But in the developing world or developing countries like Pakistan or India, for instance, it's not quite the same. But again, as a global payments company, we have to put things in place to be able to grab the right data from these different companies. And like I said, it's a massive operation. And maybe we're fortunate in some countries it's more automated than others. But, you can definitely trust Payoneer, that Payoneer will do our due diligence to make sure we understand these each business that comes in. And again, like Louis' experience has been that, we knew who the target company was. We knew everything about them. And actually, the great thing, again, was that there was an account manager that we had in Vietnam that was working with the target, right, Louis? So we
Pioneer guy, you mean? A pioneer guy in Vietnam you had.
Correct.
Exactly.
So, Louis can talk more on that, but there was a Payoneer guy, one of my colleagues, great guy actually, who was in Vietnam, and he was talking to the target, who was his customer. And then, Louis was working with one of my colleagues, Hamza, in France, who was talking to Louis. So it was almost like, it's almost like a boxing match. Nah, maybe not a boxing match, right, Louis? But it's almost like,
Kind of, yeah.
Kind of, right? Like TapNation, the target, both has their promoter next to them trying to negotiate the deal. And then it all comes together. So it was really quite a pretty thing, to be honest.
Yeah, it was good that you have a lot of resources of data we don't have, because that. So still we are growing a lot, but we don't have a lot of resource. Less than you. So it's good that you can have more detailed information on the targets, and also that's your account manager know well the target, so we feel safe also. And it was very funny that because I discussed with my account manager, that discussed with the account manager of the target, so it makes the transaction smooth as possible, and good for the communication, which was the key point in this transaction.
Louis, I'm curious about. This is. Are we, the three of us collectively, calling this operation an M&A because you bought both the code and the company, or it happens so that you can also buy, for example, source code from an individual, somewhere else. And I'm curious, or how do you approach, this type of transactions? And I'm also curious whether or not this one in Vietnam was one of the most exotic Louis operation that you had to perform.
Yeah, that was more an asset deal. If you look at M&A, you have two kinds of deals. It's asset deal or share deal. I say that I have an experience in M&A, in advisory. It was mostly on share deal for big deal. For sure, asset deal, it's easier because you only buy assets. But for example, we bought an asset that's stands for, I think, 70% of the margin of the company. So it's a very significant asset. For sure there will be new assets, but we almost buy 70% of the company in terms of profitability. And yes, it was a very exotic experience, because to make the transaction, we went to Vietnam also 2 weeks to meet the company, the owner, and so we stand there at least 4 days with them, have dinner, to make some discussion, to understand the targets and if he is safe or not. So yeah, it was a very good experience, and also we went there also because we, as discussed with Hamza, he say, okay, that's a very huge transaction. You should go there. You should meet them. It will be better for the transaction. Actually, we did at the end, and it was good advice from him. And it was very necessary to do it, because I said that for transaction abroad, I think the main issue is communication, and communication was an issue from the beginning, and we almost as a jailbreaker because of this.
Tosin, on the Pioneer, from the Pioneer perspective, what's the main difference in terms of I want to say checkpoints, between an asset deal and a share deal?
So what we normally see, and Louis is right? What we normally see is the share deal. That's what we normally see. So Payoneer is actually, weirdly enough, less involved when it comes to a share deal, because we let the companies, we work with the purchaser normally, again, like TapNation, even though it was an asset deal. We normally work with the purchaser. We say from our side, what can we help you do? Where are they located? What's the payment going to be? We just make sure from our side that, we have vetted the company and we're okay to make the transaction happen. So from the Payoneer side, it's quite straightforward. We're like, hey, we're the payments experts. Don't ask us to do anything else. We're not going to provide our lawyers. We can't help you with that. If we know the person, great. And generally, we know the person. We encourage people to actually bring the asset or the target on board of the company so we can do due diligence and help you in a way. So it's actually like an extra service we provide. If they become a customer, then we can, that we've done due diligence and it will work. But it's mostly share deals that we deal with, and it's really the payment piece that we deal with, right? So even if they become a customer, for sure, we will do some due diligence and we'll know about them. And, we're not going to necessarily say to Louis, oh, I wouldn't do that deal if I was you. But, my colleague Hamza definitely did say, hey, go and visit them just to reassure yourselves. And they spent 4 days there. And I'm sure, like Louis said, it was worth it. But when it comes, whether it's an asset or a share deal, doesn't really make any difference to us. It's really about us making sure the funds can go through, making sure the funds are secure. And that's what we do as a world-class payments company. Our focus is really on the payments, and that really is what we do.
I think the difference more from our side is more risky.
What the difference between the share and the asset?
Yeah, for the share deal it's more risky from our side. We need to do more due diligence for share deal, because you buy all the companies, so you need to look to understand local tax, local compliance. So it's more difficult.
Makes sense.
So Louis, I'm going to ask you to explain this for non-technicians, right? Because I'm trying to put myself in the 80% of the non-specialists, of our couple of million auditors, no pressure here in Europe. And, having worked for Swift for 13 years, Louis, I'm pretty sure that part of our auditors is asking, wait a second, Louis, come on. You are a big company in France, very well-developed company, great banking system. You could have called any bank in France and say, listen, or the banks that you have your millions, on, and you could say, okay, we need to do a transaction in Vietnam. I am pretty sure that you guys have a correspondent bank over there, and sort of engineer the deal yourself, right? So why haven't you done this? And why, how could you, because I know the answer, of course, I'm cheating, otherwise I would not be working for Swift for 10 years, but there are a lot of people who understand less this business, and they say, okay, why do we need a third party? It's just because, you can have a more personalized sort of customer service, is because of security, is because they are a one-stop shop to take care of all the counterparties. What are the main reasons, Louis?
We could use also an investment banker to make the deal, but we chose to do it internally. And for the bank, I mean, it's pretty hard to. I mean, we ask our bank, our local bank in France. I mean, they are not only local but international. If they have a branch in Vietnam, and it was very long in terms of process to get an answer, and finally it was not possible.
Just to figure out whether or not they could do business in Vietnam. That was.
I have a very good relationship with my bank, so no issue for this. But it was not suitable for this deal. I think because we need to be fast And we also need to have somebody which is known by each party. And for example, Payoneer was known by each party, used by each party. I mean, we use it less than the targets, and so it was a good third party for this process. And also, I mean, the digital aspects was very easy. I just have to push on a button, and you receive the money quickly. More than in, I think it was almost 20 hours or less, but it was very quick, and so it was a perfect fit for the deal.
Are you sure it was 20 hours? I thought you were going to say 20 minutes.
I think maybe it was less. I don't remember, but it was very quick.
No, fair enough. I mean, I'm kind of surprised that your bank kind of had to. You've got a great relationship with your bank, so it's all good. I'm not complaining, but I'm surprised that it took them a while to work out whether they could do it, and even then, in the end, they couldn't really do it. I mean, because technically speaking, Payoneer works on all the banking rails, right? But I guess the difference with us is we've set up loads of local relationships. So we work essentially locally along the banks. So I guess we have 2 banking partners in every country. So it's slightly different. But yeah, quite a surprise at that, really.
Tosin, one maybe super last question. So in this case, we had an operation from I want to say Western country, super well organized, standard currency.
Sometimes well organized.
Exactly. But and on the other side, I want to say a developing country with maybe a less articulated, say, banking system, and so how this is different from making indeed a Vietnam, India operations for you guys who technically an American Israeli company, right? Or like now global, but you see what I mean in terms of culture.
I mean, we have at the last count 24, 25 offices globally, right? And Vietnam's a major hub for us. So we are truly global in that respect. So even though it's like you might see it you're an international guy anyway, but you might see it as like West and more developing, but we all see it as one. It's all one because we are local. We are like a world local payments provider. So it's kind of like, it's just another day in the office for us. We're Vietnam, India, no problem. We've got you covered. And that's really how Payoneer prides itself. Like we are local to everyone. And, in the developing markets where a lot of companies or payment providers really don't want to touch it because it's tricky, it's hard, it requires more due diligence. We're willing to, for SMBs globally, we're willing to go the extra mile, the extra yard to make sure that they can get paid and pay, right? So again, it's not, whether it's Vietnam or it's Nigeria, it's Pakistan, it's Bangladesh, it's Iceland, we don't care. We want to be able to provide those payment rails for people to pay and get paid. So it can be trickier, for sure. There's probably people more senior than me that have more sleepless nights, making sure it's the machine is oiled and ready to go. But we love what we do here at Payoneer, and that's not going to change.
Guys, thank you very much for having shed the light to a business that is, more on the background, okay? And at the same time, fascinating because indeed the globalization of the economy and the fact that digital assets are in the true sense, are becoming so more pervasive, in the business that this payment rails combined with a global reach becomes, more and more essential. Tosin, Louis, thank you very much for being with us. Episode 150. I'm thrilled for this conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Care.
That was Breaking Payments Payoneer, and it's a wrap.
Thanks for listening to Breaking Banks Europe, a Provoke Media podcast in cooperation with FinTech Stage. Don't forget to tweet us out, shout out, or post to the team at Breaking Banks EU on Twitter. If there's something or someone you'd like to hear on our cast, let us know. See you next week on Breaking Banks Europe.